Hey everybody, it's Charles from HumbleMechanic.com. Today taking your questions on blow-off valves, water leaks, adjusting Audi headlights, and more. This is episode 241 of the Humble Mechanic Podcast. Remember, to get a question on a show like this, email me, charles@HumbleMechanic.com. Be sure to put question for Charles in that subject line. Ask a question right at the top like everybody here did today, and then hit the enter button a few times. Give me the details so I know what your actual question is. Also, if you don't see your question on a show like this, be sure to hit that quick videos playlist on YouTube where I do one question per video. And if you would rather listen than watch, I can't say I'd blame you. There is audio versions of these and most other shows available on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, and of course, as always, at HumbleMechanic.com. All right, let's talk about the sponsor of the day, which is CRP Automotive. CRP deals in a ton of OE maintenance and repair parts, timing belt kits, suspension components, and even fluids. In fact, they make the factory DSG fluid for Volkswagen and Audi. So check them out at crpautomotive.com. And real quick, if you want discounts to places like Black Forest, Eastwood, MT Knives, Sonic Tools, USP Motorsports, Kerma TDI, S&P Automotive, Adams Polishes, and a whole bunch more, check out that Crew Membership program. It's a great way to support the show. More importantly, you get awesome discounts that you're not going to find grouped together anywhere else. As always, links are down in the video description. All right, that's wrapped up. Let's hit those questions. First one up is from Chris. Hey Charles, I have an '09 Jetta CBTA automatic. Interested in doing some mods. I recently purchased a blow-off valve for my Jetta, and I don't know where to put the vacuum hose that is on top of the blow-off valve and where to attach it. I do know that blow-off valve should be attached to the air intake. Please let me know of any tips. All right, Chris, good question. So you want to put a blow-off valve on your Jetta. The CBTA is very similar to the CCTA, has a couple of extra things, including secondary air. Now, installing a blow-off valve is actually not very challenging. Yes, it does need to go into the intake stream. You would draw your vacuum. Honestly, it doesn't really matter where you draw your vacuum from for the blow-off valve. So that being said, I kind of want to stop you there. Guys, the VW turbocharged engines are not blow-off valve engines. Like, they can be, but they're not designed to have a blow-off valve in it. They have what's called a diverter valve or a recirculating valve, or a cutoff valve is what the parts catalog calls it. This means that that extra boost pressure is actually recirculated into the intake stream, whereas a blow-off valve does exactly what the name says, blows it out of the intake stream. If you were to install this blow-off valve, even in the perfect orientation, exactly where like the expert turbo builders do, draw your vacuum from the perfect and pressure from the perfect location, it's probably going to make your car really upset. It's probably going to cause a check engine light unless you have the car tuned for that. Now, on the CBTA and the CCTA, the turbochargers have that cutoff valve actually built into them. These are not like my Passat and my GTI, where the diverter valve is actually a separate component installed into the intake. These are part of the turbocharger or bolted to the turbocharger. So install it if you want. It's probably like 96% sure that it's going to be more problematic than it is going to actually help your vehicle. And again, if you're doing this for noise, I get it. Look for maybe one of those spacers or little noisemakers that you actually install between the turbocharger and the turbo cutoff valve, and that'll probably give you what you're looking for, and without screwing up royally anyway the performance of your car. All right, next one up is from Mike, trying to get information about adjusting my headlights on my 2006 Audi A3. A friend of mine owns a shop. When I work on the car, I replace a temperature sensor and had them flash the computer to get rid of the check engine light. While they were in there, they started messing with my headlights. I'm not really sure why, because they didn't know what they were doing. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have loved that either. Ever since then, I had this headlight out of range pop up, and the ABS and traction control light will come on. It didn't do this before. They mess with any information you could give would be appreciated. Okay, so when I first read this question, I was thinking, all right, we'll talk about setting your headlights into the adjustment mode with the scan tool, using the proper aiming device, and actually setting the headlight aim correctly. As I'm reading this a second time, I'm thinking of two things. First of all, we need to make sure our suspension is at the correct ride height. If you lower your car, it can definitely screw up the headlight aim, and you kind of have to adjust them a little bit to then adjust them properly depending on how low you are. But now that I'm reading that the ABS and traction control light's on, I'm wondering if maybe something else is going on. This very well could be a software issue. I feel like if a shop doesn't know, and this is just, I know nothing about this shop, so I'm not picking on the shop, but I feel like if a shop doesn't have the techniques to adjust headlights, maybe they shouldn't be screwing with tuning in ECM. I could be way off base, but that's just kind of my gut feeling. First thing we need to do, man, Mike, is to get the faults checked for ABS, for engine, transmission if you're an automatic, but really just run the whole scan on the car and see what faults you got. The other thing I'm thinking, let's say they had the car up in the air, maybe that ride height sensor broke, came apart, maybe they were doing something else like suspension work and broke the ride height sensor. I know it sounds like I'm really picking on this shop. I'm not. I'm just trying to think of all the scenarios that could happen while you have the car in the shop getting a temperature sensor replaced. Because who knows like which temperature sensor that actually was. I bet Mike in the shop do. But if they had the car up in the air, let's say that ride height sensor was kind of wonky already, and that full extension of the wheels down could have just made it come apart. So what I would do is I would first get the entire car scanned so you can get the fault codes out of it and see what the computer is seeing. There's no point in doing anything other than a visual inspection before you really do get that information. It's going to become vital. If your traction control or ride height is screwy, it could cause those headlights to be wonky as well. I would also make sure and figure out why, if they're just trying to code something out of your ECM, which I'm wondering if they went in and messed with long coding at this point. Maybe they just screwed the coding up and you need to get it set back to factory. Guys, this is where it gets dangerous to have someone that doesn't know what they're actually doing, poking around in coding and flashing. You know, even the DIYers, I always tell you guys, if you're gonna change any coding at all, document the code, the coding, the long coding, all of it before you change anything in case something like this happens. Typically, I'm reluctant to send you back to a shop that didn't do a great job, at least based on this email that I'm reading, but you really need to go back there and find out exactly what they did, why they were screwing around with headlights. That makes no sense to me, unless maybe you guys had a conversation about a bulb indicator or something. Maybe they're trying to help you out with that. Go back, have them scan the full car, do a visual inspection, make sure one of the ride height sensors didn't come off, causing kind of the rest of the problems, the traction control light and whatnot. And you know what, man, there's also the possibility that a wheel speed sensor went bad while they had it in the shop. That stuff does happen, despite the world saying that mechanics always screw up everyone's cars. Sometimes bad crap just happens and it sucks for everybody. It's happened to me a ton of times where I'm working on it and something totally unexpected happens and there's a way out of my control. But Mike, man, take it back, have them scan the full car. Feel free to send that back to me. We can update as needed or update in the comments and let us know. And we as a community will try and help you out. But get the code scanned. No point in doing a whole lot other than visual inspections before you do that. All right, next one up is from Chris. I have an 08 R32 with 167,000 miles on it and had a water leak with 2 inches of standing water in the driver's footwell area as well as in the back passenger. Was able to shop vac it to remove a good amount of water, but rain continues and so do the problems. It appears that a water leak is making its way down the A-pillar and continued through the fuse panel. And Chris has a whole bunch of issues like the rear wiper not working correctly and turn signal indicators on and on and on. All right, dude, first thing, we need to get this water leak fixed. You're leaking on the driver's side A-pillar. Could be windshield, could be a door seam, could be a sunroof drain clogged, probably a handful of other areas that could cause water leak. We need to get this water leak fixed, right? We also need to get that carpet up, not just shop vac it. You need to get it up, at least on that one side, pull the seat out, pull the door sill trim out, and get that carpet up and drying out. Otherwise, you're never gonna get it dry or it's going to cause a mold issue. As for the water, yeah, you very well may have some water inside some vital components in front of the dash or behind the dash, whichever way you prefer to call it. Pull the kick panel down to see how much water's up there. If there's water in the fuse panel, yeesh, that's scary. Maybe take some compressed air and blow that fuse panel out and see if you're getting water out of it. But we really need to get back there and do a visual inspection. There's a main electronics computer behind there too that if it gets water in it, I imagine you'd have similar problems than this. The vehicle electrics module is a vital module of the car and can cause great sadness when it starts to fail. I've never seen one with water intrusion, but oh boy, can I imagine how unhappy that water intrusion probably makes that module. The good thing is this is not like a B5 Passat or Audi where the convenience module is under the carpet and we can guarantee that it's in the underwater. Also, you really want to focus on the grounds. Ground connections with corrosion on them can easily cause really weird, really sporadic problems like we're explaining here with Chris's R32, his Mark V R32. So focus on the grounds, of course, but man, there's no easy way to tell you what to do other than just start taking that stuff apart. You've got to get in there, you've got to look. And if you find any water, we need to get it out, we need to get it clean, we need to get it dry, and then we need to reevaluate what is going on. A side note though, those 519s, the vehicle electrics modules, it's a semi-common failure part anyway, not broad spectrum failure, but when you hear of one failure, you're like, yeah, all right, that's reasonable. They fail anyway, so it may not be anything to do with the water behind the dash. It might straight up be that you got that module tweaking out. Either way, we gotta get that water leak fixed, man. We're on the back end of Hurricane Florence here, and I'm wondering how much standing water is gonna be in my B5 Passat when we go out there after it stops raining. I'm taking an over-under on about 3 inches of water. Considering we've got about 10 inches of rain over the last 3 days, I'm expecting some pretty good standing water. But if that happens, I'll show you guys how to fix it. So lose, win? Who knows? But dude, get that stuff taken apart, find the water, clean it out. That's all I can really tell you. You can pull faults through the whole system, just like we answered on the last question, to kind of drill down into where that problem is isolated. But those two things, step one, step two, flip them around, whichever works better for you. If you got a scan tool, scan it first. If you don't, pull stuff apart, see where your water leak is. All right, last one of the day comes from Tony. Saw your YouTube video and thought you might have the answer that I'm looking for. Got an 89 Vanagon with an AAZ diesel engine. It got hot and warped the head. I put a 97 Passat TDI in my son's 81 Caddy, which worked out very nicely. So now I'm looking at putting an ALH in my Vanagon to replace the AAZ. What would I run into by doing that swap? Thanks, Tony. Tony, cool swap, man. I always thought Vanagons with ALHs were super neat. So the cool thing for you is that you already did the bulk of the work on the AAZ. Doing the ALH shouldn't be that much different. The engines are relatively the same size, relatively the same weight, relatively the same components. You are going to run into a little bit of issue that's different maybe for the electronics, because you are going to have an ECM with the ALH. Although I think you can actually run an ALH without it, I would probably just go ahead and do it. So, man, this is going to be very similar to the way you swapped the AAZ, and probably taking some cues from when you did the swap in the Caddy. Even though that's not the same engine that you did in the Caddy, they favor each other. They're very similar. And guys, remember, engines need air, they need fuel, they need compression, and they need spark on a gas engine. In this case, we're providing our spark with our compression. So you can do it. Shouldn't be that hard. I don't see a ton of issues. If any of you guys have made this swap or know anyone that has, either tag them in this video or put your comments down in the comment section and let's try and help Tony out, because I think that's going to be a pretty easy swap for you to do, man. And just make sure that you go through the engine and make sure it's all nice and dialed in and everybody's happy, healthy. And what a great time to do any kind of injectors or turbo upgrades, because race van? I would go with race van. All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up there. Questions, comments, you know what to do. If you like the video, thumbs up, always appreciate that. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the audio version if that is your flavor. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course on Snapchat. Fun fact, it was 4 years ago today, actually yesterday as you're watching this, if you're watching the day that came out, that I actually posted the very first video when I started doing videos very seriously as the new platform. So happy 4 years to the HumbleMechanic video series. Thank you all for your support, because without that, it probably would not have lasted this long, and probably, I mean definitely. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.